shall we start the party? Are we ready? Start the party? I was nothing but his fool. Oh yeah.
There are voices that sing a song, and then there are voices that seem to reveal something true buried underneath it, whether the writer intended it or not. Aretha Franklin had a voice like that. Tonight, we're counting down her 10 most streamed recordings, the songs that, decades later, still command the most plays across every platform on Earth. But this isn't just a list of hits you already know by heart. Behind each of these 10 songs is a story most fans have never heard, a forbidden collaboration, a marriage that shaped a masterpiece, a producer who doubted a song that would go on to define an era, and a rivalry so quiet most people missed it completely. One of these songs isn't even the one most people would guess claims the crown, and by the time we reach it, you'll understand exactly why. Before we count down, I want to take a moment to say something real. This channel, Black Legacy Files, just crossed 200 subscribers, and every single one of you helped make that happen. Every view, every comment, every share is helping preserve the stories of the artists who built the sound of Black America and gave the world a language for joy, grief, defiance, and love. So thank you, genuinely. And if you love classic R&B and soul the way we do, subscribe now, because we're telling these stories every week. The legends, the heartbreaks, the comebacks, the songs behind the songs. Hit like if you're the kind of fan who wants the real story, not just the highlight reel. Drop a comment with the song or artist that changed your life. We read every one. And stay with us until the very end, because the #1 song on this list carries a revelation that changes how you'll hear Aretha Franklin forever. Let's start the countdown. At number 10, Sisters Are Doing It For Themselves. We begin somewhere few people expect. 1985, a synthesizer-drenched dance floor, and Aretha Franklin standing shoulder to shoulder with a British new wave duo who had nothing in common with her, on paper. Sisters Are Doing It For Themselves paired Franklin with Eurythmics, the group led by Annie Lennox and Dave Stewart, on the album Who's Zoomin' Who. It should have felt like a mismatch, a gospel-rooted soul legend standing next to a synth-pop act built for MTV. Instead, it became proof that Franklin could enter any decade and still own the room. The song's message was simple. Women didn't need permission to build their own lives, but Franklin's presence gave it history. Lennox brought a sharp, modern edge. Franklin brought the weight of someone who'd already lived the words. This wasn't a trend for her. It was a fact she'd been proving since childhood. By the mid-1980s, many artists who defined an earlier era were struggling to be heard at all. Franklin wasn't just surviving the transition, she was thriving inside it, riding the momentum of Freeway of Love and rebuilding her pop career without losing an ounce of who she was. She didn't reinvent herself for the 1980s. She simply brought her authority into a room that had never heard anything like it. And 2 years before this song, she'd already proven that same authority could survive an even bigger risk, a shift in rhythm so bold it nearly broke every rule people expected from the Queen of Soul. At number 9, Rock Steady. Aretha Franklin does something few artists at her level ever attempt. She doesn't defend her sound, she changes it. Rock Steady, released in 1971 on Young, Gifted, and Black, pulled Franklin toward funk, tighter, harder, and more physically demanding than almost anything she'd recorded before. And in one of the most surprising details in her catalog, she co-wrote it herself, alongside her then-husband, Ken Cunningham. This wasn't Franklin simply lending her voice to someone else's vision. By this point in her career, she was deeply involved behind the scenes, shaping arrangements, guiding musicians, and playing piano on her own sessions, often understated in the final mix, but essential to how the record actually breathed. The early 1970s belonged to funk. James Brown, Sly and the Family Stone, and a new generation of black artists were reshaping rhythm itself. Franklin didn't step into that world as an outsider. She'd grown up inside a church that already understood the power of the hand clap, the stomp, the call the congregation answers back. Funk wasn't foreign to her. It was gospel, just louder.
What it is, step and move your hips with a feeling from cha-cha.
There's something else Rocksteady reveals, a side of Franklin fans rarely got to see. By 1971, she was carrying enormous pressure, the burden of fame, complicated relationships playing out in public, and the weight of being treated as a symbol for an entire community. This song let her simply enjoy the groove, confident, playful, fully in command of the room without needing to explain why.
Sit yourself down in your car, take her out, you wanna move.
That range, sacred one moment, unapologetically physical the next, is part of what kept her essential across 5 decades most artists never survive. But if Rocksteady showed the world Franklin moving forward, entry number 8 takes us backward, all the way to the very beginning of her recording career, to a song that wasn't even hers, and a version of Aretha almost no one remembers existed. At number 8, You Send Me. We go back to where it all began. You Send Me was written and made famous by Sam Cooke in 1957. Franklin recorded her version over a decade later for 1968's Aretha Now, long after the world already knew her as the Queen of Soul. But this song offers something rare, a glimpse of who she was before any of that. Aretha Franklin was born in Memphis in 1942 and raised mostly in Detroit, where her father, Reverend C.L. Franklin, was one of the most respected Baptist ministers in the country. She was singing gospel as a child, and recordings from her father's church already showed a voice far beyond her years.
Darling, you send me.
At 18, she signed with Columbia Records. The label knew she was talented. What it couldn't figure out was what to do with her. Her Columbia years moved through jazz, pop, and blues, full of promise, but never quite finding the breakthrough her voice deserved. Everything changed in 1966 when she moved to Atlantic Records. Producer Jerry Wexler understood something Columbia never had. Franklin's greatest gift wasn't precision, it was truth. Her version of You Send Me isn't a copy of Cooke's original, it's a young woman's wonder, filtered through a singer who already understood love came with weight attached. That transformation was only getting started, because the next song on this list would take restraint to a level almost no one expected, and reveal a side of Franklin built entirely on what she chose not to say. At number 7, Son of a Preacher Man.
Could ever teach me was the son of a preacher man. You see, everything is alright. You kiss and tell me everything's alright. Can I get
Aretha Franklin does something unusual for a singer with her power. She holds back. Son of a Preacher Man is one of the most recognizable songs in her catalog, but it almost wasn't hers at all. Written by John Hurley and Ronnie Wilkins, the song became a hit first for Dusty Springfield in 1968. Franklin recorded her own version the following year for This Girl's in Love with You, and for decades, Springfield's take remained the one people remembered.
he was? Oh, yes, he was.
That changed slowly, then suddenly. As Franklin's catalog found new life through film, television, and streaming, her version of Son of a Preacher Man began reaching listeners who'd never heard the original at all. The song tells the story of a secret romance tied to a preacher's family, a setting that would have felt deeply familiar to anyone raised in the black church, where a minister's household lived under constant public attention. Franklin herself, a preacher's daughter, understood that tension better than almost anyone alive. And here's what's remarkable, she doesn't oversing it. One of the most powerful voices in recorded history chooses restraint instead, turning the song into something quieter, more private, less a performance, more a memory being revisited.
Lord knows, yes he was.
That restraint reveals something important. Beneath the legend, beneath the title of Queen of Soul, was a woman who became a mother while still a teenager and carried public scrutiny most people her age never faced.
He would take me walking, through the backyard we go walking. Then
But holding back was never permanent, because the next entry on this countdown finds Franklin doing the opposite, turning betrayal into an accusation the entire decade couldn't ignore. At number 6, Chain of Fools. We arrive at the single greatest creative run of Aretha Franklin's career, and a song that turns heartbreak into something almost dangerous. Chain of Fools begins simply, a woman recognizing that her relationship has become a cycle of betrayal. Released in 1967, the song was written by Don Covey, inspired by an old gospel song, and brought to life by the Muscle Shoals rhythm section, the same musicians shaping the deep, earthy sound coming out of Atlantic Records that year. The arrangement is built on repetition. That famous guitar line returns again and again, like the singer can't escape the pattern she's describing. But Franklin doesn't just repeat the emotion, she escalates it. Every phrase lands heavier than the last. She isn't pleading with anyone to change. She's naming exactly what's happening in real time. That's the difference between Franklin and almost every other singer of her era. Most could perform heartbreak convincingly. Franklin sounded like she was diagnosing it. This wasn't an isolated hit. In 1967 alone, Franklin released Chain of Fools, Respect, and You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman, a run that reshaped what soul music could sound like, and the song's meaning reached beyond romance entirely. In a decade defined by the fight for civil rights, the idea of being trapped in a chain carried weight far beyond one relationship.
Yes, I did, but I found out.
If you're discovering these hidden stories behind the music you grew up on, this is exactly why we do this. Subscribe for more classic R&B and soul documentaries, hit like if these legends shaped your life the way they shaped generations before you, and tell us in the comments, what song or album changed everything for you? Because the higher we climb in this countdown, the more unforgettable these stories become. Stay with us. At number 5, I Knew You Were Waiting for Me.
somehow I made it through the heartache. I knew you were waiting for me.
Aretha Franklin does something almost nobody expected. 20 years after her first trip to the top of the charts, she gets there again. I Knew You Were Waiting for Me arrived in 1987, a duet with George Michael, the British pop star who'd risen to fame with Wham. On paper, it looked like a mismatch. Franklin represented the roots of soul music itself. Michael represented its glossy, synthesizer-driven future. But the pairing worked because both singers understood something rare: when to hold back and when to let go completely. The song is about perseverance, two people who've endured hardship finally finding each other. For Franklin, that theme carried real weight. The 1970s had brought both extraordinary highs and real uncertainty, as disco, funk, and shifting musical trends reshaped the entire industry around her. By the 1980s, she faced a question every legacy artist eventually confronts: stay yourself or disappear trying to keep up.
I found my way out of darkness. I kept my
She chose herself, and it worked. The song shot to number 1, won a Grammy, and proved something bigger than chart success, that Franklin's voice could still command the center of popular music, decades after she'd first claimed it. This wasn't nostalgia, it was victory, with memory built into every note. But 2 decades before this triumphant return, a song written by one of pop music's greatest songwriting duos would turn a simple love song into something closer to a spiritual awakening, and change how the world understood what Aretha Franklin's voice was truly capable of. At number 4, You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman.
I see the sun shining through.
We go back to 1967, the same extraordinary year that gave us Respect and Chain of Fools, but this song came from a completely different place.
All right.
You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman was written by Carole King and Jerry Goffin, reportedly finished in a single evening after producer Jerry Wexler suggested the title himself. Franklin recorded it for Lady Soul, backed by the Muscle Shoals musicians and the Sweet Inspirations, a group that included a young Cissy Houston on background vocals. On paper, the song is about love giving someone a sense of belonging, but listen closely and Franklin turns that idea into something bigger. This isn't a woman waiting for someone else to define her. This is a woman finding herself again. Her performance builds with total control. The verses unfold slowly, almost like a conversation, before the song opens into one of the most spiritually powerful vocal releases ever recorded. Those final runs aren't decoration, they're proof of survival, of strength, of a self that refuses to disappear. Carole King would later record her own version and become famous for it in her own right, but where King's composition gave the song its blueprint, Franklin gave it its cathedral. That difference says everything about what made Franklin unmatched. A song could start on paper, but it didn't become real until she carried it through her own breath, her own history, her own life. And still, despite everything this song represents, it isn't the one streamed the most today. That title belongs to something quieter. A song about prayer, distance, and the fear of losing someone to a war that never should have taken them. At number 3, I Say a Little Prayer. We uncover one of the most surprising origin stories in Aretha Franklin's entire catalog, because this song wasn't even supposed to be hers. I Say a Little Prayer was written by Burt Bacharach and Hal David, and it was Dionne Warwick who recorded it first. The lyrics were written with a very specific image in mind, a woman quietly worrying about a man serving in the Vietnam War. Franklin recorded her own version in 1968 for Aretha Now, and here's the detail most fans never hear. Her version reportedly began almost by accident. During a break in the recording session, Franklin and the Sweet Inspirations, who had also worked on Warwick's original recording, started singing the song informally, just to pass the time. Producer Jerry Wexler, by most accounts, wasn't convinced it was even a hit. He'd already seen it succeed once with Warwick. Recording it again so soon seemed unnecessary, but Franklin heard something Wexler didn't. She reshaped the arrangement, brought gospel urgency into a melody built on delicate pop songwriting, and turned a quiet moment between takes into one of the most enduring recordings of her career. In 1968, with the Vietnam War dividing the country, the song carried weight far beyond romance. Millions of families understood exactly what it meant to wait, to worry, to pray for someone who might not come home. If a story like this, a song almost left unrecorded, a moment that could have easily been forgotten, is the kind of history you want more of, subscribe now because there are countless untold stories like this one still waiting to be uncovered. But before Franklin could turn a private prayer into a song the whole world would carry, she first had to take a song that belonged to a man and turn it into a demand spoken for an entire generation. At number 2, Respect. We reach the song most people already think is number 1. And once you hear this story, you'll understand why so many assumed it. Respect is the song most closely tied to Aretha Franklin's name, but it didn't start with her. Otis Redding wrote and recorded Respect in 1965. His version was a working man's request, someone asking to be recognized when he came home. 2 years later, Franklin took that same song and changed its entire direction. She reworked the arrangement, sharpened the rhythm, added the now famous spelled-out chorus, and turned a request into something far more powerful, a demand. In Redding's version, respect was something earned through providing. In Franklin's version, respect became a basic condition of dignity, something every person deserved, no explanation required. The timing mattered as much as the performance. 1967 was a year of racial tension, political upheaval, and a growing movement demanding change on every front. Franklin didn't turn respect into a lecture. She made it danceable, unforgettable, and impossible to sit still through, while still saying something that mattered. The song was recorded with musicians including guitarist Joe South and drummer Roger Hawkins, with Franklin herself on piano. It became both a civil rights anthem and a rallying cry for the women's movement, embraced by two movements at once without losing its identity in either. There's a moment often remembered from that time, when Jerry Wexler played Franklin's version for Otis Redding himself, and Redding reportedly said she'd taken the song from him. Whether that was said in shock or admiration, it captured exactly what had happened. Franklin hadn't just covered respect, she'd claimed it. Respect, the song most associated with her name, the one people assume defines her entire legacy, isn't the most streamed Aretha Franklin recording today. That title belongs to a song we've already met once in this countdown, and now it's time to find out why it earned the top spot. At number 1, I Say a Little Prayer. The most streamed Aretha Franklin recording today is I Say a Little Prayer. We already know its origin story. Written for Dionne Warwick, born almost by accident during a break in Franklin's own recording session, dismissed at first by a producer who didn't see its potential, but knowing how a song was made only explains half the story. The other half is why it never stopped being played. Respect remains the anthem people associate with Aretha Franklin first, but I Say a Little Prayer has quietly outlasted almost everything else in her catalog, across playlists, films, television, and generations of listeners who weren't even alive when it was recorded. Part of that comes down to what the song actually captures. It follows someone through the smallest details of an ordinary day, waking up, getting dressed, going to work, while carrying a private fear underneath all of it, that the person they love might not come home. In 1968, that fear was tied to Vietnam. Today, it belongs to anyone waiting on someone far away, in danger, or simply out of reach. Franklin doesn't oversing a single moment of it. She lets the melody breathe, then lets the prayer return with more urgency each time, building emotional insistence instead of volume. The sweet inspirations give the recording its communal warmth, turning a private plea into something that feels shared, the same way a congregation answers a preacher mid-sermon. That's the thread running through everything we've covered tonight. Franklin didn't just sing songs. She translated them through gospel, through grief, through joy, through defiance, until listeners forgot anyone else had ever recorded them first. Now it's your turn. Which song on this list surprised you the most? Which one do you think truly deserves the top spot? Tell us in the comments. We want to hear your memories, your arguments, your favorite Aretha moment. And if this countdown brought back memories or introduced you to a side of her story you'd never heard, subscribe, because we've got so many more legendary artists, unforgettable songs, and hidden histories still coming. This isn't the last countdown, it's just the beginning.